Every single Mortal Kombat game has character endings. Some are canon, some are completely made up, and some are so unhinged they make you wonder if the developers were okay. So today, I'm breaking down every single one, starting with the man who kicked it all off. In October 1992, if you were good enough to beat Goro and then Shang Tsung in the original Mortal Kombat arcade cabinet, you got rewarded with a few lines of white text on a black screen. No cinematic, no voice acting, just a text scroll telling you Liu Kang defeated the sorcerer, restored honor to the Shaolin Order, and brought peace to Earthrealm. And somehow, those few sentences built the entire foundation of this franchise. Liu Kang's ending established the core rule every future game would either follow or break. Win Mortal Kombat, gain supernatural protection for your realm. Simple, done. He's declared the new champion and Earthrealm's greatest defender, which is pretty impressive for something that took 8 seconds to read. Here's the thing though. This ending is fully canon. It's the baseline of the entire timeline. But even in 1992, you could play as any character and beat the game, which means the guy whose ending declares him the greatest warrior of all time could also get his spine ripped out by Kano in round 1. Nobody addressed that for years. I don't know what to tell you, but if you think a little narrative contradiction is messy, wait until you see what Shang Tsung's ending did to the timeline in the sequel. For the first time in the franchise, the villain gets to win. And not just win, but completely humiliate the hero in the process. Shang Tsung's arcade ending in Mortal Kombat 2 plays out like a revenge fantasy. After defeating Shao Kahn, he does what he does best. Absorbs Liu Kang's soul, regains his youth, and declares the tournament his. Which is interesting, because about 30 seconds before this ending triggers, the game shows you a weakened, barely functional Shang Tsung limping into the final fight. Apparently the devs didn't care about that contradiction. Glory spectacle over gameplay consistency, a tradition that would define this franchise for the next 3 decades. But here's where it gets genuinely wild. During his victory sequence, Shang Tsung is holding an hourglass artifact, just casually gripping a reality-altering device like it's a participation trophy. Nobody thought twice about it in 1990. It was background decoration. Then MK11 drops in 2019, and suddenly that same hourglass is the most important object in the entire multiverse. 26 years of foreshadowing that was almost certainly accidental, but looks genius in hindsight. The ending was eventually declared non-canon when MK9 rebooted the timeline, settling a community debate that had been raging since dial-up internet. Turns out Shao Kahn won after all, but at least Shang Tsung got his moment, unlike the Emperor himself, whose canonical victory might be the most anticlimactic power grab in fighting game history. April 1995, Mortal Kombat 3 hits arcades, and buried inside it is an ending most players will never see. Not because it's hidden in some secret menu, but because triggering it required you to beat the game without losing a single round in an arcade, where the AI read your inputs like a psychic with anger issued. Here's what happened if you pulled it off. Shao Kahn declares himself the one true emperor, absorbs Earthrealm's energies, and grows to roughly 20 feet tall with lightning crackling off his body. Effects that were flatly impossible during normal gameplay. The machine just decided to show you something it had been keeping in its back pocket this whole time. His epilogue mentions unleashing extermination squads across every dimension. The bad guy wins. Completely, which in 1995 felt genuinely transgressive, like the game was punishing you for being too good at it. But here's the thing, nobody could prove they'd seen it. Kids swore at lunch tables that Shao Kahn grew massive and shot lightning everywhere, and their friends called them liars. It became this weird arcade urban legend, existing somewhere between "I definitely saw this" and "Did I hallucinate during hour 3 of a Mountain Dew binge?" MK11's Aftermath expansion later confirmed this as a legitimate timeline branch. Decades of vindication for every kid who got called a liar. But if Shao Kahn's victory felt like the franchise at its darkest, Raiden's MK4 ending went in the complete opposite direction. Raiden in Mortal Kombat 4. This is the moment Mortal Kombat stopped being an arcade game and started being a story. September 1997, and for the first time ever you finish an ending and get an actual cinematic, not a static sprite with scrolling text. A fully rendered, animated 3D cutscene, and they chose something nobody expected. Raiden defeats Shinnok and earns something he's never had before, a seat among the Elder Gods themselves. Not a consolation prize, a genuine ascension, but leaving Earthrealm unprotected isn't something he does casually, so he appoints Fujin, the god of wind, as his successor and new protector of Earth. He gives his instructions, says his goodbyes, and ascends. Clean. Done. Divine customer service. Fujin stepping into that role established a template the franchise kept returning to. Protectors are temporary, replacements are inevitable, and nothing that guards Earthrealm ever gets to rest for long. But here's where it gets interesting. Raiden's ascension and the depletion of the war against Shinnok left Earthrealm in a different kind of vulnerable. Sorcerers noticed a Thunder God who just handed off his post and thought, yeah, we can take him. That's the entire premise Deadly Alliance built its story on. Earthrealm got a new protector in Fujin, but he wasn't ready for what came next. The real find came years later though. When the HD remaster dropped, players spotted a spectral Liu Kang watching the duel from the background, a ghost, just standing there, potentially foreshadowing his resurrection and deception years before that game existed. Either someone at Midway was playing 4D chess, or it's the happiest accident in fighting game history. But if Raiden's ending marked the franchise growing up, Scorpion's Deadly Alliance ending is where it learned to hurt you. Scorpion in Mortal Kombat, Deadly Alliance. Scorpion finally gets what he wants, revenge. After tracking Quan Chi all the way to Shang Tsung's palace, he closes in on the sorcerer who destroyed his clan and family. But here's the thing, it doesn't go as planned. While making his way through the palace, he's discovered and ambushed by two Oni, Malak, and Draman, hidden in an underground chamber by Shang Tsung. Scorpion fights well, but is overpowered. The Oni haul him before the Solnado, a portal to the heavens that Shang Tsung had tapped as a source of limitless souls, and hurl him into it. His hellspawn body is ripped apart by the purity of that realm. Before you brush it off, hear me out. This was one of the first Mortal Kombat endings where Scorpion's quest for vengeance doesn't result in triumph at all. He's been manipulated, outmaneuvered, and destroyed. The implication? Even when he closes in on his target, the universe conspires to keep him suffering. His entire existence is a leash held by sorcerers who need him angry and desperate. Now the real kicker. Scorpion's arc in Deadly Alliance is defined by failure disguised as purpose. He thought killing Quan Chi would bring closure. Instead, he's obliterated by forces serving the very people protecting Quan Chi. That cycle stuck around, defining his character for 2 decades. MK9, MK11. Even the latest games lean into this restless torment, making Scorpion less a hero and more a tragic anti-hero bound to endless struggle. And that's what makes this ending so brutal. The franchise mascot chases his wish across realms and immediately gets punished for it. It sets the tone for Scorpion's whole arc. Vengeance doesn't equal peace, and the pursuit is just the start of a much darker sentence. But if you think Scorpion's existential crisis is complicated, wait till you see what happens with Taven in Armageddon. Taven in Mortal Kombat. Armageddon. This is the most confusing ending in Mortal Kombat history, and I don't say that lightly. Taven's victory over Blaze in Armageddon features something no other ending in the franchise ever attempted. An elder god narrates it in first person, not a cutscene narrator. An actual deity speaking directly to you, saying, "I left this sword for him in my temple." That's unprecedented. That's weird, and it only gets weirder. Here's the thing. The epilogue states that godlike energy passed through Taven and transformed him after slaying Blaze with this specific sword, except it's not one ending. Game files confirmed 4 alternate outcomes based on how fast you completed the fight, each giving Taven a completely different transformation. Nobody told players this at the time. You just got whichever one you got and assumed that was the whole story. But here's where it gets complicated. NetherRealm later confirmed that Taven's victory created the New Era timeline, the one MK9's entire reboot springs from. So this ending is literally the bridge between classic Mortal Kombat and everything after. Foundational, right? Turns out no. John Tobias clarified in 2020 that Taven's victory was actually non-canonical, despite being narratively significant. So it simultaneously created the new timeline and also didn't happen. I don't know what to tell you. And that temple sword? Retroactively connected to MK11's Chronica Saga, where Blaze weapons became components of the Hourglass itself. 14 years of foresight, or 14 years of convenient retconning. Either way, it worked. But if Taven's ending built the bridge to the reboot era, Sub-Zero's ending in MK9 is what happened once everyone crossed it. Sub-Zero in Mortal Kombat 9. Here's where Mortal Kombat's relationship with its own endings gets genuinely complicated, because up until now, endings existed in a vacuum. You beat the game, you got your little reward cutscene, and nobody asked too many questions about whether it really happened. The 2011 reboot changed that by having a full story mode running alongside the traditional arcade tower, which means Sub-Zero now has 2 completely contradictory fates within the same game. In his tower ending, Kuai Liang defeats Shao Kahn, and Raiden then reveals a truth that reframes everything. The Lin Kuei were ultimately responsible for the deaths of both Sub-Zero's and Scorpion's families. With a common enemy finally named, Sub-Zero makes the most unexpected move in franchise history. He extends a hand to Scorpion. The two warriors, united by shared loss and the same betrayal, tear through their enemies in a storm of fire and ice. Once vengeance is done, they disappear into legend, emerging only to avenge the innocent. It's a genuinely moving ending buried inside a game that killed half its own cast, and it recontextualized Sub-Zero's relationship with Scorpion in a way that took nearly 2 more games to fully pay off. But here's the problem. Story mode shows Sub-Zero losing to Scorpion moments after this supposedly happens. Same game, same timeline, 2 completely different outcomes. This fueled an entire fan movement arguing the reboot's tower endings were fundamentally invalid, which is a conversation that only gets messier from here. Speaking of invalid, let's talk about what happens when an actual god gets a non-canon victory. Shinnok in Mortal Kombat X. Here's the thing about Shinnok's ending in Mortal Kombat X. Most people have never seen it. Not because they didn't care, but because the game actively didn't want them to. You had to beat the final battle on the hardest difficulty, and the completion rate sat at 0.2% of players. Less than 1 in 500 people who bought this game ever watched this cutscene legitimately. And what did that tiny fraction get to witness? A fallen Elder God achieving total, uncontested victory over Earthrealm. Shinnok obliterates every hero in the roster while declaring this realm shall burn as Netherrealm burned. Nobody survives. Nobody mounts a comeback. He just wins. But here's where it gets genuinely interesting. His corrupted form absorbed the Elder God's power, creating the first Dark Pantheon concept in franchise history. Not a villain who kills gods. A villain who becomes an entire corrupt divine hierarchy by himself. That was new mythology for Mortal Kombat, and they locked it behind a wall that virtually nobody could climb. The epilogue states he established a reign of eternal darkness with Kitana as unwilling consort, which is, not ideal for Kitana. Now here's the part that makes developers wince. That entire ending sequence reused MK9's city destruction assets with an inverted color palette. Same buildings crumbling, red skies, 12% of the normal cutscene budget. They spent almost nothing on an ending almost nobody would see. The backlash was real enough that a Steam petition circulated demanding easier access. Players essentially said, we paid for this game, let us watch the cutscene. Fair point when you've gatekept your most interesting lore behind a difficulty wall that filters out 99.8% of your audience. But if you think a gatekept god ending is dramatic, wait until Liu Kang literally becomes one and rewrites all of existence. Fire, God Liu Kang in Mortal Kombat 11, Aftermath. Here's the thing about Liu Kang. He started this whole franchise. Back in 1992, he was just a Shaolin monk who punched a sorcerer really hard. That was his entire deal. 28 years later, he became God, and not like a minor deity or some vague cosmic presence. Full-on supreme being, rewriting reality from scratch. The Aftermath expansion gave us fire. God Liu Kang defeating Shang Tsung with Kronika's crown, and the cinematic that follows is genuinely something else. He stands in the void, declares himself the keeper of time, and proceeds to rebuild every single realm from cosmic fire, just casually reconstructing existence like he's rearranging furniture. His epilogue goes further. Liu Kang didn't just win. He erased every tragedy the franchise ever produced. Shao Kahn's invasion? Gone. The Deadly Alliance murders? Never happened. 30 years of lore, functionally deleted by a guy who used to just do bicycle kicks. But here's where it gets interesting. His recreation of Earthrealm explicitly included Johnny Cage's movie set. Not the in-universe Johnny Cage, the actual film adaptation's version. NetherRealm literally acknowledged the 1995 movie within new canon, which is either brilliant meta-commentary or the developers having a laugh. Probably both. The community split hard on this one. Lore purists called it a lazy reset button that invalidated decades of storytelling. Casual fans celebrated because their guy finally won permanent. No asterisks, no, but then he died again in the next game. Just victory. The character who started as a mortal champion became the architect of all reality. Full circle. But if you think Liu Kang's godhood means nobody else got a shot at the crown, wait until you see what Shang Tsung does with that exact same opportunity. infinity. Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat 11, Aftermath. Here's the thing about Liu Kang's ending in Aftermath. It's beautiful, it's hopeful. It wraps everything up with a nice golden bow. But the alternate ending, the one where Shang Tsung wins, that's the one that actually matters. If Liu Kang falls during the final confrontation, Shang Tsung absorbs Kronika's crown and delivers what might be the most theatrical villain declaration in fighting game history. All realms, all souls, are mine, screamed into the void of a collapsing timeline while reality bends around him. And this isn't your standard bad guy wins, roll credits situation. His soul-stealing ability, which previously worked on individual fighters one at a time, suddenly operates at god-tier range. Entire timelines consumed simultaneously. Every version of every warrior across every reality just gone, absorbed, his. But here's where it gets genuinely interesting. The epilogue states he created a realm of perpetual hunger where warriors fight eternally. He didn't destroy Mortal Kombat. He made it infinite. An endless tournament with no victor, no resolution, just combat forever, which is, not ideal for the participants. This was also the first ending where Shang Tsung retained memories across all timelines. Every reset, every reboot, every alternate path, he remembers all of it. He's the only character in the franchise who knows every version of history simultaneously. That's not just power, that's omniscience with a grudge. Liu Kang's ending resolves the story. Shang Tsung's ending becomes the story. Infinite conflict is always more compelling than eternal peace, and the developers knew it. But if you think Shang Tsung cornered the market on theatrical power grabs, wait until you hear what Sindel pulled off in the franchise's newest timeline. It's in das Immortal Kombat 1. Nobody talks about this ending, and I mean nobody. For a character as visually iconic as Sindel, her tower ending in Mortal Kombat 1 is almost criminally underrated. Here's the setup. In Liu Kang's new era, Sindel is genuinely good. She's a compassionate empress, a devoted mother to Kitana and Mileena, and the kind of ruler who actually cares about Outworld. Then the events of the main campaign catch up with, and a version of herself from a darker timeline delivers the killing. Sindel dies surrounded by her family, which would be a tragedy in any other franchise. But here's where it gets genuinely strange and beautiful. Her soul doesn't just dissolve. It gets absorbed by Ermac, the ancient being made of thousands of merged souls, who already carries the spirit of her husband Jared inside him. So now both of them are sharing one body, fighting the thousands of other souls within Ermac for control, and they win together. Sindel and Jared seize control of Ermac and make a choice that reframes the ending entirely. They don't try to escape or restore their physical forms. They embrace it, together inside one body, ruling Ermac the way they once ruled Outworld. The tragedy becomes a reunion, death becomes a throne. The shock value here isn't gore or betrayal. It's the realization that a franchise built on death and damnation gave Sindel the one thing she never got in 30 years of storylines: a win. The character who spent decades being manipulated, brainwashed, and used as a plot device finally got a story where she chooses her own ending, even the dying part. But if you think buried lore is impressive, wait until you meet the character who literally exists to bury it. Garrus in Mortal Kombat 1. Garrus doesn't just have an ending, he has a job description. Debuting in Mortal Kombat 11 in 2019 as Kronika's enforcer, he returns in Mortal Kombat 1 as something completely different. Liu Kang's loyal guardian of the Hourglass, a former weapon of time repurposed as its protector. His tower ending takes that role and expands it in a direction nobody saw coming. After proving himself in combat, Garrus sets about protecting Liu Kang's new era from a threat the Keeper of Time himself couldn't have anticipated: invasion from other timelines. Not from Outworld, not from the Netherrealm, from alternate realities bleeding into the new one. The very stability of Liu Kang's era turns out to be its greatest vulnerability, and Garrus is the only one positioned to see it. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting. Defending the new era's borders has an unexpected side effect. The newly intertwined nature of the timelines grants Garrus the ability to monitor all of them simultaneously, not just Liu Kang's. All of them. Every timeline, every branch of reality, now visible to one being tasked with making sure none of them collapse into each other. His whole arc across both games is a quiet miracle of character writing. In MK11, he was Kronika's instrument of control, immortal and loyal to a vision he couldn't question. In MK1, Liu Kang reconstructed him as a friend rather than a tool, and his ending reflects exactly that shift. Not a weapon watching the door, but a guardian who understands what he's protecting and why. So while every other ending on this list is about seizing power or surviving long enough to tell the story, Garrus ends his chapter by becoming something rarer, the one entity in all of reality who can see the whole board at once, and who genuinely wants to keep it together. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now